What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 40 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I've got producer Noah here with me. And Noah, we've got a great show for this one, for episode 40. This has fast become my favorite type of Lobbing Scorchers episode. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like I got a shit, Ari. My stomach.
Yep, that's right. We're going to talk about the Columbus Crew, who they played in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final at Pachuca last night. And Noah, it did not go particularly well on multiple counts. The whole thing really, it went off the rails in ways that I don't think anyone could have even anticipated. I mean, it's not necessarily the fact that they lost the game. It was how they lost it that I found so notable. They unfortunately joined the ranks of LAFC and Toronto FC as clubs who have made it to the CCC final and not won it. And
not everyone can do it.
Not everyone can do it. We're going to riff on that and have a good time with it, as we did when LAFC choked and lost last year. The Seattle Sounders have won this tournament famously.
Yeah, famously.
Famously.
Over two legs as well.
Over two legs, as
Didn't
we all
lose.
remember and look back on fondly in 2022. They're the only MLS club to win the modern incarnation of this tournament, and that has remained the case. So
It was an easy path, though.
Yeah, shout out to the Athletic. But we're going to have a good time reminiscing on the Columbus Crew's big night last night. We're going to clown on them a little bit, but I'm also going to give them their due on certain counts. I don't really have as much against the Columbus Crew necessarily as I do against LAFC. And, you know, I do think there are aspects of their Champions Cup run this year that deserve their fair share of respect. But they also got absolutely boat raced last night, and that was pretty funny. So most of the show, the reason the Seattle Sounders didn't play last night was because they were supposed to play the Columbus Crew, and the Crew made it to the CCC final. So the game ended up getting rescheduled so they could play in that. Everyone else played last night. So we're going to spend most of the show talking about CCC, and then get to your questions and give some takes on the rest of the results that took place around MLS last night. But before we do that, as always, wanted to take care of a little housekeeping at the top of the show here. Thank you to all our paid subscribers. We love you guys. We got a new one to thank. Nate Bowling, my guy. One of our new paid subs. Nate, we miss you on Twitter, man.
Yeah.
I know that you made your exit during the Elon era, which is unfortunate, but I understand. But thank you so much for subscribing. Much appreciated, man. I'd also like to thank Joey, Brenna, Pete, Rhombus, Nate, Tyler, Owen, David, Christopher, Bill, Mike, Aaron, Derek, Sounder Daves, Dan Pavetto, Mike Standish, Ryan, Eric, my nephews, CJ and Miles Marinakis, Andy Hill, Ian Mitchell, and Greg Hoker. If you'd like to support the show, all you have to do is go to podcast.lobbingscorchers.com, click the little heart, and you can pledge however much you want. And we certainly appreciate any and all support, even though it's not obligatory. And also, please subscribe to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. Noah, we're almost at the big 100 subscribers, which was set as our first benchmark goal. I think we're at like 97, something like that. So we're right there. I know there's 3 people out there listening to this that have not subbed to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. Get us to that big 100. We really appreciate all the support on there as we continue to try and grow on that platform. But no, let's get into this CCC final, because it was honestly, I had a good time watching it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Me too.
As far as the game itself, I really don't think there's all that much to say. It was non-competitive. Columbus got bammed on, outplayed in every capacity. It was only 3-0. Could have been a lot worse. You know, it got so bad to the point where you know, I was covering the rest of the MLS games going on last night. That was my primary work responsibility. But realistically, you know, I was way more interested in what was going on in the CCC final. So I was pulling that up, and I was ready to lock in and, you know, kind of toggle between the two things, you know, cause I got to tend to my work responsibilities. But I was locked in and ready to go, and it went off the rails so fast, and to the point where eventually I just kind of switched back over to the other MLS games and wasn't really paying that close attention to it. I was keeping tabs to see if they made the comeback, but I was not locked in on it because it was a non-competitive game. And it's interesting. We recorded a show where we talked extensively about, should Seattle fans root for the Crew? How should they feel about another team potentially joining them as among the ranks of CCC winners in the modern era? And I kind of made the case that I was rooting for the Crew, and I would have been happy to see them win. And I went into the game last night feeling like that. I was like, I'm rooting for the Crew right here. Let's go. Go get the win, Nancy ball, get the dub for MLS. Like, I definitely went into it with that mentality. But no, I'm not going to lie to you. As soon as they started getting boat raced, I started having fun with it almost immediately. I was like, oh, this is pretty much the exact same emotion that I felt watching LAFC choke it last year. I was just smiling, vibing, having a good time. And at the time, I couldn't really exactly put my finger on why watching these teams crash and burn in these finals makes me feel that way. But I guess that's something that we're gonna get into. But I actually I enjoyed this quite a lot. I'm sorry, Columbus. I promise you, like, I was rooting for them.
Yeah.
But as soon as they started to crash and burn, I was enjoying myself, without a doubt.
The whole Charlie Brown, kit, I think added a little bit to it to me. Like, it was literally like the football had been pulled away from them. They had no life that entire match. Just from like minute one, they were chalked, and it was so funny. Like, I went into the match just like not even really caring because I don't know what. We had talked about, oh yeah, you should support the Crew. Like, it's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. Either way, we'll be winners. But I went into that match and 5 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. The Crew are donezo. This is bad.
They were cooked so fast. I have a couple questions written here that we can talk about that I was thinking about in the aftermath of all this. And, I asked some of you I crowdsourced some takes on Twitter last night, so we'll get into some of those later. But I think just generally, let's just talk about how Seattle fans should feel about this. We talked about it going into it. Does our perspective change on it after we've seen the final result? And honestly, my feeling on it is that, for me at least, this is just me personally. Like, everyone has their own feeling on it, but me personally, I kind of look at it as a win-win from a Seattle perspective, because, like I said, I would have been happy for Columbus to get it done and see it out and get the win for MLS. It would have been good for the league, but honestly, more than me caring about the advancement of the league or closing the gap between MLS and Liga MX, and we talked about this on the show where we were riffing on this, but I respect the Crew. I still think that Wilfred Nancy is the best coach in the league. They play pretty fun, aesthetically pleasing soccer, which I can always appreciate. I respect how they've gone about building their roster. Tim Bespachenko is one of the better GMs in the league, which he showed dating back to his days with Toronto FC. So I really, much more so than LAFC, I would have been happy to see Columbus win it. But from a Seattle perspective, I think there is something fun and novel about being the only club that can do it,
Yeah.
Like, there's something to that. Because if you go throughout the history of this competition, what happened to Columbus last night is pretty much what's happened to every MLS team that's ever competed in this tournament, and certainly all the ones who have made a run at actually winning it in recent times. LAFC couldn't get it done. They're one of the greatest super teams of all time, right? Like, Carlos Vela had 58 goal contributions in a season. They put up a plus 75. I'm making up these numbers.
Yeah.
Put up a plus 70 goal differential, and they couldn't get it done.
Second fastest to 25 goal contributions or whatever.
Yeah. Toronto FC, remember how good those teams were and when they made the final? And we haven't even gotten into that one that much, but that's probably the worst choke job of all of them. They had, I can't remember who they were playing. I think it was Tigres. They had whoever they were playing. It was a Liga MX powerhouse in penalties. And remember Michael Bradley freaking skied his penalty into the next dimension.
That saved me. Like that like fully, I was like feeling so down in the mud. I remember like during that time period, and I watched that match, and my whole entire life turned around after that.
People forget about that one, but Toronto, if they had just won that shootout, they would have been the first team to win it. And Seattle, if Seattle had gone on to win it after that, it still would have been an amazing accomplishment, but it wouldn't have the novelty and the historic nature that you can always hold on to of them being the first ones. But it's just really, I think it's created a great situation for Seattle fans because you're always going to be the first, right? And then if someone else wins it, the way I look at it, more power to them, join the ranks of the CONCACAF elite. But if they choke and lose, it's like, it's not that easy, right?
Yeah, no, I love being the first. I love being the first for many reasons. One, because every single person always has an excuse for why the Sounders won it. They always have an excuse for, oh, well, it was an easy path. Oh, well, you basically played the Cleveland Browns of Liga MX. Oh, well, then do it. Then do it. Like we are in such a unique position to be like, that's great, man. Cool, whatever. We still got the trophy and you don't. LAFC, Mickey Mouse ass tournament. They had the Mickey Mouseest version of that tournament possible. Got to play the final at home in a one-leg final.
No, it was still
or it was two legs. It was two legs, but
this is the first year. I was looking this up last night because I couldn't quite remember. This is the first year in the revamped format that it's a one-off, but like
I thought that year with COVID they only played one.
Okay, but
that was it.
That was the COVID year. Okay,
I was the first year, the first time that the LAFC,
the second time they choked.
Yeah,
okay, you're right.
Not the second time they choked, but the first. That's the thing too. It's like we only needed one shot. We only needed one shot. At the final. Come on now, Ari. Come on. Come on, don't come for me. But it's like it feels good. I was rooting for the Crew for about approximately 3 minutes.
Yeah, we had the same reaction.
Yeah.
As soon as the game started, I went to rooting for Pachuca. I'm not going to lie.
Well, and it wasn't even because like the Crew are this like super big bad wolf in MLS, which I think they really do benefit from Miami being such an evil in the league right now. Because I feel like people were more likely to root for the Crew when they've been insanely dominant. They've basically been like the next version of LASC or the next version of that Toronto team. But people have kind of like steered their ire away, unless you're in Cincinnati. They've steered their ire away because they're like, fuck Miami. But the Crew are like a real good MLS team. But
yeah,
man,
they're easy to get behind. Yeah.
But Pachuca plays some ball, man.
They really, they did last night. We got to get into. We haven't even gotten into the craziest part of all this. We got to talk about the post-game press conferences from both Wilfred Nancy and the Columbus players because. The biggest thing that I noticed about this performance from Columbus, and I think everyone noticed this, was how flat and how non-energetic they were. And it was very bizarre to watch because we were not used to seeing a Columbus team come out that flat with low energy, sloppy, bad giveaways. It's the worst I've seen them play under Wilfred Nancy. And, being on the road in Mexico at altitude only explains so much of that. So I was paying close attention to these pressers because I was like, I want to hear what they have to say about what happened here because I'm genuinely curious as to what they attribute the extent of this letdown to. Because I was surprised it was a non-competitive game. I going into it, my honest prediction was that they would probably lose as the road team playing against a Liga MX club at altitude. The deck is stacked a little against you anyway. It would be an upset if you did win. But I thought it would be competitive, and it really was not. competitive at all. It was a very one-sided game. So I was tuning into the Columbus pressers to see what they had to say about all this. And, well, first, Wilfred Nancy got up there and he revealed that something that explains a lot, which is that apparently every player on the team, and not only every player, but the entire coaching staff got viciously sick pretty much as soon as as soon as the plane landed. They all got the entire traveling contingent of the Columbus crew got viciously sick. And Wilfred Nancy said that I take no joy in reporting this, but this is just what he said. He said they basically all had really bad diarrhea for like 2 days. Wilfred, he got up at the press conference, and I've never seen anything quite like this. He got up there, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was basically like, guys, my entire team and my entire coaching staff, including myself, we've been holed up in our hotel, just blowing up the bathroom for 2 days straight before this game. We essentially went from the hotel bathrooms where we've been spending 20 out of the last 24 hours per day, and then just went from there to the stadium and just played this game. And so, and him and all the players were like, we're not making excuses, but we feel obligated to reveal and point out that we have indeed been blowing up our bathrooms for 2 days straight before the game. So Wilfred Nancy revealed that. And so I saw that quote and I was like, oh, wow, that's definitely, it explains a lot. It explains a lot. And realistically, with that variable taken into account, I mean, they had no chance in this game. They had no chance because you're playing in a very, very difficult, hostile environment at altitude. It's challenging physically already. No, you played the game.
Yep.
Like, can you imagine being as sick as Wilfred Nancy was describing and then playing any game like 2 days later, let alone one of this intensity and magnitude? I mean, honestly,
I would quit.
The fact that they only lost 3-0 is low-key impressive considering the reported physical condition of the team and the staff. So that I think there was a quality differential between the sides that likely would have did Columbus in anyway, based on what I saw in the game. However, it's definitely a little hard to gauge if you grant that what they're saying, like the extent of how sick they were, is true, which, Nancy talked about it. The players talked about it. I think I don't think they're exaggerating how sick they were. I mean, it definitely, that sucks. Like, I'm not going to lie. That sucks. But I thought the most interesting quote on this topic was from Cucho Hernandez, who, and I'm just going to read
you got to put your tinfoil hat on, Ari.
I'm going to read this quote and I'll kick it to you to see what I'll tell you my reaction and I'll kick it to you to see what you think of this. Cause I don't want to like put words in the guy's mouth, but I think it's not hard to read between the lines of what he's saying here. He did say it in Spanish, so maybe something got lost in translation, but it seems pretty clear cut what he's saying to me. Cucho Hernandez, star Columbus Crew forward after the game, said, we had more than 20 people from the staff sick with diarrhea all night for 2 days. God, that sucks.
Dude.
And then he says, it is not a coincidence that 20 people got sick. I do not want to blame anyone or blame the result on that, but I think it affected us physically. Some of the guys spent 2 nights almost without sleeping. They weren't sleeping. They were just up all night. He says, I'm not complaining. The city was spectacular. The people were very helpful. It is just not a coincidence that more than 20 people from the group got sick. Now, what I think is interesting about this quote is he says twice, not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. What do you think he means by that? Because to me, it sounds like to me that he's implying that they like got dosed or something like that. What else does he mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's got to be what he thinks. I mean, or at least something related to that. Like it's funny, but
maybe he means it is. I was trying to think maybe he means it's not a coincidence that we played
poorly.
So poorly. But he said the quote is literally, as translated, it is not a coincidence that 20 people got sick.
I mean, maybe, you know what? maybe he's not wrong, because the neurovirus does exist, which probably is what all of these people had. Like, and that is super transmissible. Maybe he's just like, I studied. I got my MD, bro. I know about the neurovirus. Or maybe he's got his tinfoil hat on and he thinks the Liga MX side poisoned him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That would certainly be a huge story if that did turn out to be the case.
CONCACAF.
But until something to that effect is until there's evidence shown or proven, I tend to think that they just got horribly unlucky to have whatever it was break out at the timing that it did. And it is unfortunate that it chalked their chances before kickoff even started, really. And frankly,
but it's not an excuse. Sorry,
not an excuse, as as both Wilfred and Cucho both said.
Yeah,
but frankly, I honestly do have a degree of respect for the fact that happened, and they still went out there and played the game, and they did. I mean, they got bammed on, but they only ended up conceding 3 times and almost scored like once or twice.
Yeah.
So considering their physical condition, I think it explains the extent of how poor the performance was, and at least I feel like I understand it more than that. But what I will say is, I do think they probably would have lost this game anyway, just not as badly.
Well, and there's a simple way to not have to play that game away and to not have to get poisoned by the taco truck guy. That is, just win more games. Just win more games. In the the Sounders did it.
It's true.
Saying.
Columbus fans would probably point out that the Sounders didn't get sick. The Sounders
but they wouldn't have gotten sick if they didn't.
So the Sounders also had. This is the first year that the final is one-off under this like revamped format that they've instituted for Champions Cup. The Sounders had 2 legs in their final against Pumas, but that wouldn't have changed the equation all that much for Columbus in this scenario, because if you just grant that the first leg would have gone the same way and they lose 3-0 in the first leg, I mean, they would have been totally chalked anyway.
Yeah.
So,
it would have been hard to come back. Do I think if any team could do it, it would be Wilfred Nancy's Columbus? Absolutely.
Playing at home, yeah, it wouldn't have been impossible, but it would have been a pretty tough mountain to climb. I will say on that topic, as far as the debate between a one-off final and a 2-legged, I like the 2-legged. I don't know. It might be an unpopular take, but I just think that over 2 legs, the actual quality of the teams shines through more, and it takes some of like the randomness and luck out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, 180 minutes, who actually plays better is typically going to win that.
Yeah.
Whereas a one-off, there's such an element of randomness and chance to it, which is fun and exciting, but I like the spirit of competition personally, of the better team having like more time to show that.
Well,
so that's just me. Yeah. I would have preferred they kept it 2 legs, but I mean, I do understand and respect the fun and excitement of a one-off too, even if this one went off the rails.
And it gives both teams' fans a chance to watch a final leg as well, which like I really like. Like the fact that you're able to have, especially when you have like Mexican League teams or, theoretically people from anywhere in CONCACAF able to make it to the final. Everyone should be rewarded as fans for that hard work. So 2 legs is great. And then no one can cry fucking, we had to play at 7,000 billion feet altitude. It's like, all right, dog, you play in Colorado every once in a while. Like, let's calm down.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I want to say the crew did not do that. The crew were like, I gotta say, for how bad they got smacked, like, they really didn't make any excuses. Like this was a pretty calm post-game presser.
Well, other than them extensively talking about how they all had diarrhea. But you know, if I was in
but
there,
like that's not even like a
that's not sour grapes. Like honestly, I don't begrudge them pointing that out at all. If I was in the same situation, like I would feel pretty compelled to point that out and let people know that too, because it clearly, I mean, it's very like thinking back on their performance now with that knowledge, it explains a lot. Like it really does.
I mean, just think about Steve T.
Yeah,
he would not have done that in that situation.
Steve C.
Bro, I always call him Steve T.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about, you know, I guess you were dunking at me on Twitter last night. So
I was.
Is Wilfred Nancy stock down? You know, I had a take about why I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, if not the best coach in the league, on a previous episode that you cooked up a little reel of. But I mean, I'll just say that I stand by the take, which is that I still consider him probably the best coach in the league. You know, like in the clip, I wasn't comparing him to Pep or Jurgen Klopp, like in terms of coaching ability. My take was that like there are certain categories of coaches, like the two guys that I just named, who they give you a tangible edge in every game that you go into, just due to their, not just their tactics, but the buy-in that they get, the culture that they create, all those things play into it to where some coaches just they impact the results more than others. And I think Wilfred Nancy has shown that he is a coach that actually, like, they probably get results at times that they might not otherwise normally get because of the impact that he has on games. That's pretty rare. There's not a lot of coaches that you can say that about. I don't think there's all that many in MLS. He's one of the only ones that I could name. Like, I don't even really, it's hard for me to put Tata in that category that much because he's been given the greatest roster ever assembled. When he was the Atlanta coach, that was one of the most loaded MLS rosters I've ever seen. Like, if I coached Inter Miami this year, I'm pretty sure I could win MLS Cup. Like, it's not like the hardest job in the world, you know? If I was coaching them, I would just say, guys, I don't really know what I'm doing. Just tell me what formation that you like to play. That's what we'll run. I'll let my assistants set up the drills that you do in practice. I don't really know about that. And then I'll just have someone give me advice on when to do the subs. Just let me know how you're feeling about that, and let's go out there and cook. I'm pretty sure I could win MLS Cup like that, you know? Wilfred Nancy, he's had to do a lot more actual coaching in his life. This guy was at CF Montreal where they didn't really have much of anything to work with.
Not even a real city.
Yeah, and he did so well at that job that Columbus hired him off and gave him a pretty loaded roster, and he's done fantastic with it. So I don't think his stock is really down at all as far as MLS coaches. Maybe it's a little down as far as his CCC stock, but I mean, I do think like you do have to give a degree of credit to the run that Columbus had this year. I mean, they had a crazy path. They took down two really good Liga MX teams, Tigres and CF Monterrey, right? Like that's that's an impressive path. And they were getting results on the road really up until they crashed and burned in the final. It was as much as we clowned on the take of Seattle having an easy path, this path would have been harder. And they did really well to get to this point. It doesn't mean a heck of a lot now that they didn't win it. And now that's basically all they are as far as CC is concerned, is a team that had a good run that couldn't finish the job, like LAFC and Toronto. But they did have a pretty impressive run, and I think Wilfred Nancy, he does deserve credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they win against, Rayados if Wilfred Nancy isn't the coach. Like, I mean, they demolished the super team of Mexico, or one of, and that's impressive. I'll give them that. Like, that's cool. It's just not for everybody. That's just my take at the end of the day.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of talk about the gap between MLS and Liga MX. There always is after results like this. Has it closed? Will it close? What's it going to take for it to close? I mean, my take on that overall topic is that, I mean, it's pretty much the same as it has been. The gap has legitimately closed quite a bit. Even though Seattle's win looks like a bit of an outlier at this point, in the last like 5 to 7, 8 years, MLS clubs are performing better in this competition. A lot of them have made finals at this point now when you factor in LAFC, Toronto FC, Seattle winning it, Columbus making it. So it's certainly close compared to what it used to be, but there still is a gap there, and the main reason that a lot of pundits and analysts point to for that is an issue of finances. You know, I think the perception is that Liga MX rosters are not as constrained as MLS rosters with the salary cap and regulations that MLS has, and which is true to an extent, but I think there's something that's worth pointing out about this game, okay? And there were some tweets about this, so I went and I looked it up myself, and because apparently on FS1 last night, Alexi Lawless was popping off about how, you know, until MLS teams are allowed to spend more and you take the training wheels off the roster rules, like this is going to keep happening and it's impossible to compete with Liga MX until and the gap will never close, blah, blah, blah. All right, no, I'm going to read you Pachuca's payroll, and then I'm going to read you Columbus's payroll for 2023, 2024, okay?
I'm ready.
Pachuca's $7.8 million. Not a very big payroll at all.
Okay, FC Dallas, go off.
Yeah, exactly. Columbus Crew's 2024 salary spend, $15 million.
No,
okay?
You're lying, Ari. I was told, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, it's almost double, which honestly, I was surprised to see that. I figured it would probably be closer than people thought, but I kind of learned a lot because I sort of took the fact that Liga MX clubs are so much more well financed than MLS clubs in general as gospel, and I would have thought upon looking it up that if you went through the Liga MX payrolls, they would all be, you know, higher than the MLS salary cap and probably way higher. But what I found, these are just the numbers that I looked up. So if anyone has different information or wants to correct this, feel free. But this is just what I saw when I was going through. There's a website that has all the Liga MX payrolls. A lot of them looked very similar actually to MLS payrolls, and in this case, it was actually Pachuca's was smaller than a lot of MLS teams, which I thought was very interesting, and it was certainly smaller than Columbus's. But what you do have is you have a few clubs at the top of Liga MX where their payrolls do blow the MLS salary cap pretty much completely out of the water. The two examples were Club America and CF Monterrey, where you're talking about $25+ million, which, I mean, that's certainly a lot higher than Columbus's 15. But for the most part, what I saw was that they were honestly pretty similar. And like the point is, this Columbus Pachuca matchup was not a situation where you had a team with a super low payroll comparatively going up against this like huge big spending team. Pachuca are they're a Moneyball squad in Liga MX. We were talking about it before we started recording, but apparently they're known for having a really elite youth academy and spamming their young players to great success. And they've won this competition a lot of times. I think this was their 6th CONCACAF title. Yeah. I don't know when the last one they won was.
I think 20. It's been in the last 5 years.
They are. They're not this just like crazy big spending club. They are a well-run organization that spends their money smartly and efficiently and focuses a lot on youth development. And it's clearly paid off. But like the whole narrative that Columbus just got outgunned by a club that spends way more money than them. I mean, it's not true at all. Unless I'm like tripping and reading some totally wrong numbers, but I'm just telling you guys what I Googled, and Columbus's payroll for this year was double what Pachuca's was. So, I don't know, anyone who's dishing that talking point about how the gap needs to close financially between MLS and Liga MX, for the gap between the leagues to close, That's just, I mean, it is true to an extent when you're talking about clubs like Club America and CF Monterrey, but that's not what happened here.
No, not at all. And like, for one, I think that a lot of MLS teams can take a lot from a squad like Pachuca, who are like so incredibly deep in their youth prospects. It's basically FC Dallas or Philadelphia Union.
They're the Philly Union of Liga MX.
But they win.
Yeah, except they win finals.
Yeah, like they are an incredibly like it shows that they have such youth depth that like half their starting lineup was legitimately youth prospects. Like if you are a Football Manager player, you are in love with this squad. Like it is to a T what you do on Football Manager, like a fucking video game. It's incredible. But yeah, they're a talented team. The last time they won Champions League was 2016, 2017. But to be in another final, not even 10 years later, and win it is incredible. And they beat a lot of teams as well to get to where they were. And they got knocked out of the final of the, I think it was the second stage of the Mexican regular season, or they structure it way differently. But man, like yeah, they're not Club America. They're not Pachuca, or they're not Rayados. So yeah, like cool, I get it. Like sure, I think the bigger story is as we get more clubs going to play like in the Club World Cup, if you relax the salary cap, then maybe you can compete more with the European teams. But we are competing with Mexican teams. It's just that I think it's fair to say these Mexican league teams are really fucking good.
They're really good, and I think it's a lot of the difference is depth. I think MLS clubs are at a point where the upper tier clubs in MLS, their starting 11s can go up against a Liga MX starting 11. It's when you get into the bench and the depth players where the gap still really seems to show. They're bringing guys off the bench of extremely high quality, and a lot of MLS teams are, they're bringing off like academy kids with not a lot of experience, or maybe super draft picks that were playing at Georgetown 6 months prior, and now you're trying to play them against a Liga MX club in Champions League, which tough sell or tough proposition sometimes.
I think the best like example of what the next version of MLS that may get us to being genuinely competitive with Liga MX is a team like Inter Miami. Like, funny enough, it's like even when Messi and Busquets and Suarez aren't playing, they have Kramashi, they have Campana, they have all of these players that are like nasty. Will we see that going forward? Probably not, but that is like the way you would want to build a roster out, because their second team is an average MLS quality team. Like that's impressive.
It's Inter Miami was really MLS's best chance at winning this competition this year, and
easily.
It's unfortunate that Messi got hurt in the first leg of the series that they lost, because I think they probably win that series if he plays, and Inter Miami could have actually made a run at it. And I think if you put them in that final, they would have had a better chance than Columbus ended up having. But so it goes. Let's get into questions, Noah, and then we'll go around the league if that sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
A lot of it's funny, I've interacted with a lot of you now about how Seattle fans feel about the Crew, and I would say it's been pretty split. Like a lot of people actually did say that they were rooting for Columbus last night, but then a lot of people also were rooting for Schadenfreude and took joy in Columbus's defeat, similar to how Noah and I did. So it's been interesting to see like the diversity of reactions.
Yeah. Kenny, one of my favorite Twitter users, asks, why does the rest of the country refuse to get behind Seattle and their accomplishments? Seeing everyone root for the Crew rubs me the wrong way, because even when Seattle won, the rest of the league would only pat themselves on the back like, oh yeah, we all earned this.
It's definitely a thing that people like to see Seattle fail. And there was a lot, I remember when Seattle was in the CCL final, there was a lot of other fan bases rooting for their downfall, but honestly, to me, that made it even better when they won. Like, I kind of welcome that. It's fun being the team that people root against that way, in a way. And, it's kind of unfortunate. Like, Seattle's form has taken such a downturn since they won CCL. I feel like they've kind of sacrificed a little bit of that status as the villain that people root against just because they're not really playing well enough to merit it right now. But I thought, I don't know about you, I thought that sentiment enhanced the victory. Like, it made it sweeter.
Yeah, no, I think we're both very open and honest about just the absolute downfall post CCC final of like the Sounders, and like they kind of had to give it more than everything. They sacrificed multiple years of quality to win that. And like, yeah, I think we've both been feeling pretty like down about that. But to see that final and see them get dog walked like they did, it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, cool, I can ride with that for a little bit longer. As for everyone hating us, I don't get it. I really don't. But it is funny. Like, what are you going to do? Like, I had a bunch of crew people in my mentions posting up GIFs from the 2020 MLS Cup, which famously the Sounders didn't even play in. So I don't understand. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can flex your third MLS Cup on me, even though you've been in the league longer. But we have the trophy that you can't win.
Right. I think a lot of it is to do with the whole like Seattle invented meme.
Yeah.
People think of Seattle fans as kind of full of themselves and
which we are
pretentious, which, arguably not inaccurate, but I think that's a lot of the rooting against sentiment that Kenny is talking about. I think a lot of it that's where it stems from.
Yeah. It is funny though. Everyone will shit on the CCL win for the Sounders, but will make excuses at every turn to say, oh, well, this loss in the final wasn't that bad considering this, that, and the other thing. And I think also, like, funny enough, I think there is an East Coast bias to the media coverage around the crew and the CCC and like all of this stuff, because I know that we've hit on it like twice and we've kind of skirted around it, but the Athletic article was genuinely one of the stupidest like takes that I've ever seen in my life. And they're not even no one's gonna have to answer for that. No one is going to have to answer for that. And it's like, it pisses me off.
I'm glad you have a platform to air your grievance on that. I think you actually, that created a firestorm on Sounders Twitter that the likes of which, hasn't been seen, I don't think, this season, as far as how blazing hot the discourse got. And you were leading the charge there. So I'm glad you got your little moment to pop off about that again last night. I know you had been holstering that one.
Yeah, I had the screenshots. Okay, hear me out. Until another MLS team wins CCL, and anytime an MLS team doesn't win CCL, it's basically the exact same thing as Seattle winning CCL. So for all of this glee you're seeing is probably justified legally speaking. And this one is from a handle for Ian.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate that one. I like the galaxy brain nature of the take. I didn't really understand it, but I think you might be onto something.
It's like y equals mx plus b. You know what I'm saying? Like, you understand it, but you don't.
I got a D+ in math.
Yeah,
so,
no, I don't. I dropped out of college.
It's not
so
a math.
I don't.
It's not a math pod.
Yeah. Unseriously, this one's from Andrew TK. Nancy Ball is dead. Long live Schmetzer Ball. Seriously, never underestimate how hard it is to get a result on the road in CONCACAF. Sounders did not lose on the road, not to Leon, not to the defending MLS champions NYCFC. I was at that game. And not against Pumas. That's the differentiator.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like every year, and now this is now 2 years in a row where we've gotten to do this CCC final choke podcast, and both times it happened, it's made me look back on Seattle's easy path with even more fondness. It was just such a clinical run, man. Like, I think that's why the idea that it was an easy path is so grating to those of us who watched every single one of those games and were there for that run, because their execution of game plans and tactics and game management and just the way that they played during all the games and managed the series, it was flawless. It was lights out. They ended that CCC run with a +13 goal differential. easily the best team in the tournament, 6 or 7 guys who made the tournament best 11. And there were just so many moments that you could point to, like JP winning the penalty, Freddie making his clutch penalties, Nico hitting one at the end in the first leg of the final, I want to say, to salvage the 2-2. The series against NYC where Raul got the clutch goal. I mean, it was just a type of game management and execution that we really haven't seen since from Seattle. It feels like they emptied the tank on it.
Yeah.
And really they put it all on the line for it, and they got it done. And looking at what's happened to LAFC and Columbus in the last 2 years, it makes it more impressive. It does.
Yeah. Even if it was an easy path, this is what I'll say, which I will acknowledge, and we were both very open about, if Columbus were to win this year, then
it would have
it was a way harder path. And that's fair. But the thing is, you take the path that you're given, they dominated the path they were given. So it's not even like they were barely skating by on an easy path. Even if they would have missed every penalty they would have given, they would have advanced through every single round and still won the tournament. They did not lose one game. That is impressive. I don't care who you are, to play in a continental tournament where you have to go down to Mexico, or you have to go to other continents and keep your form and keep a level head, pull out a draw. Pull out a draw when you're down 2-0 and you end up drawing the game in the 98th minute or whatever.
God, that game was insane.
That is I don't care who you are, how good you are. That is impressive. I don't care how bad the other team is. That is impressive. So, I will continue to gloat. I will continue to downplay the talking points, but God, that just, it was a magical run.
It's always
everything went right for them.
I love reminiscing on it every time another team loses. It's so good.
It really is the best possible thing. This is something that you alluded to before, but I wanted to give credit to the original poster here, Radar Signals. It feels like the Sounders org leveraged the rest of 2022 and 2023 and 2024 just to win the one Champions League. And while watching the Sounders struggle ball makes you think, was it worth it? Nights like tonight make you go, yeah, it was.
Absolutely. Great point. And, we've had to think about that a lot with what's happened to Seattle since that run. I've thought about that a lot. Was it worth it? So worth it. So worth it. I would not trade that run for anything. Like, if you had told me beforehand that Seattle's MLS form would revert to 1.1 to 1.3 points per game for the next year and a half to 2 years, but you have that CCL run, I mean, I take that all day. And I honestly can't relate to anyone who feels different. But if we're really honestly breaking down why Seattle has been a 1.1 to 1.3 points per game MLS club since CCC, I mean, I think the biggest reason probably is because of how they emptied the tank to win CCL. JP tore his ACL in the final of that tournament. I don't think he's really been the same player since he got back. That's been a big reason, him not being available and then not being fully fit in his peak form when he got back. That's been, I think, a reason that we haven't talked about as much for why Seattle's form has slipped. And then I think just in general, there's this psychological component to it where you have this core that has summited a mountaintop that they can't accomplish anything more or anything greater than what they already have with winning that tournament. And you can try and not let that affect you psychologically, but I have to imagine that the sort of subconscious notion that they've already done the greatest thing that they could possibly do as MLS players, it might, I don't know, it might play into things like motivation and energy for specific given games and how you execute in certain moments. I don't know. That was a little bit of a tangent there. But.
No, but you're right, because the core of that team that's still here and that is still driving the momentum of this roster has won 2 MLS Cups and a CONCACAF Champions League
What more is there to do than that?
Yeah, and I think you see that with the effort and the drive that players, like Obed have, like where they got in like right at the end, they got the taste of winning CCL, but it's like that doesn't even define his career because it was like he was so young.
He was 16.
Yeah. And even like Reed Baker Whiting and Cody Baker and like all of these players, that when they got that achievement in their career defined a lot more for it pushed them a lot more for their future than it was like, okay, Jordan Morris is in his prime, wins CONCACAF Champions League. If I'm Jordan Morris and I've had everyone talking shit about me my entire fucking career, you know what I'm going to say? I won 2 MLS Cups and a CCO. What other MLS player has ever done that?
Yeah, not many. Not any.
Not any.
Yeah.
Jordan Morris.
That's kind of that's what's cool about it is like every single person who was on that team and Schmetz and the coaching staff, like they are truly immortalized for that. Like the CCL trophy is, they have something that no one else has with that. That's like a very cool and unique thing.
Yeah. And we'll finish it off here from a Columbus Crew fan that hit us with this take. Has an MLS team ever won on the road at Pachuca? ? No. Not really sure why everyone is digging Columbus. Had a great run. Beating Tigres and Monterrey were great results for the league this year. Pachuca is a ridiculous place to play a final.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you why we're digging Columbus, which is that it's basically just gloating over the fact that Seattle has won this competition and no other team has, which is something you can do when the team you support wins CCL. That's like a perk,
Yeah.
It's really nothing personal against the Columbus Crew or the city of Columbus or Wilfred Nancy or Cucho or anything like that. Like I said, I like the team and I respect the team. I respect the whole operation. But I'm still going to clown on this result. I hope that's fair.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less if the roles were reversed,
Yeah, they would be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like anyone who would be in this position would be doing the same thing. Like I think it's funny that everyone's like crying that Sounders fans are dunking on them. It's like that's a perk. That's a perk. We are terrible. Someone was in my mentions like, "Oh, well, don't be too loud cuz the Sounders suck." I'm like, "Yeah, they're fucking terrible." And guess what? I'm still gonna be loud because we won. We get the like. Let me take my dub, bro.
That's the perk.
Let me take my dub. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your takes. We love you.
Thank you as always to everyone who submitted those. Much appreciated. Let's get into some winners and losers from the rest of the slate that took place around MLS last night, and then we can get out of here for episode 40. Does that sound good now?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's just dive right into it. Winners. Seattle Sounders.
Dub.
Still MLS's only CCC champion. Feels good.
Feels good.
Feels right.
And they didn't even have to play a match.
They didn't even have to play a match to get in the winners section this week. The Seattle being in the winners section has been few and far between this year, but I feel good about throwing them in there in this situation.
Yeah. I think an even bigger win, too, is that the Crew match was rescheduled. Now we have the chance to play hungover Columbus Crew, which, that's kind of...
That's more... The result is more attainable in that game than it might have been previously because, let's be real, for as much as we have gloated on this episode, the Columbus Crew are they're a vastly, vastly superior team to the Seattle Sounders right now. Like, if you put these two teams... in a one-off, I'm taking Nancy Ball and Cucho. If you asked me to pick that 10 times, I would pick them all 10 times.
Yeah, same. So, that's not even a...
And I'm pretty sure Seattle has to go to lower.com field, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's... God, I might not even watch that.
Yeah, that one might, yeah.
Real Salt Lake.
God, that game was...
a buzzsaw right now. 5-1 over Austin FC. I watched quite a bit of that game. It wasn't even that close. Chicho Arango with the hat trick, including an arguable goal of the year contender where he lined one up from midfield, even further back than a couple of the ones that Rui Diaz has hit. He was in his own half.
Yeah.
He was in his own half. I think it came out to 62.7 yards away from goal or something, which is just it was an insane goal. I kind of felt bad for Brad Stuver because he's way off his line, but it's one of those ones where you don't expect him to line the shot up from that angle, let alone hit it as accurately as he did. Chicho, if it wasn't for Messi and Suarez, he would easily be the MVP. You could make an argument. He's leading the Golden Boot race right now. He's also got like 9 assists. He's putting up crazy numbers. What a signing for them. And really, I mean, when we're talking about the best teams in the league right now, you know, Inter Miami, Columbus, FC Cincinnati, those are the 3 that come to mind right away. But I mean, Real Salt Lake with Chicho firing like this, they're right up there. I mean, this game was a bloodbath.
Yeah, I would love to see Inter Miami play a full strength Chicho team. Like, oh my god, that would be so fun.
I still would take Inter Miami over any team in the league in a one-off, assuming relative health. But Real Salt Lake is. I would say Real Salt Lake, they just have so much firepower right now compared to an FC Cincinnati, where FC Cincinnati, a lot of their wins are still like 1-0, 2-1. They scored 4 goals in a game like last week, so they can explode like that. And Lucho is one of the best players in the league. But I think Real Salt Lake has a different tier of firepower with Chicho. I mean, what he's doing right now is ridiculous.
Which is why I think they'd probably bam on Inter Miami, considering, you know, the defense.
They love to get bammed on. We're going to talk about that.
They do love, in which,
Minnesota United beat Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, 3-1. Their forward, Tani, I'm not going to try and say his last name, but he's got 7 goals, 4 assists, and I just think it's really impressive what the Loons are doing, considering Timu Puki, remember him? Remember the big DB signing? 1 goal this year, or 2 goals this year, but they were both scored in the same game. He's not doing anything for them. And then Manuel Reynoso doesn't play for them anymore, famously. He's gone missing 4 times, and they finally shipped him to Club Tijuana. So they lost one of the best assist maven number 10s in the league, who was the centerpiece of everything they did for multiple years. And their DP number 9 isn't producing at all, which, I mean, we know how that goes. That can be a death sentence at times in MLS. And not only has it not been a death sentence for them, but they have Tani, who's been a revelation and is producing at the rate that they would have needed Timo Pukki to. And then they've replaced Reynoso with Robin Lod, who is, you know, he's not as much of a beast as Reynoso is in terms of his as a facilitator, but he's low-key like one of the more solid, dependable players in the league. He's more of a do-it-all player than Reynoso, who it's not. I don't think it's like Reynoso is like a two-way player. He's basically just like you plug him in the center of the park and he's going to hit a lot of really sick dimes, but not do much else. Whereas Robin Lod is more well-rounded, and he's playing extremely well for them as a focal point of that attack. And I think you got to give. I've been hyping Eric Ramsey a little bit on the show this season, ever since he got hired. I think he's doing good work for Minnesota, and they cruised in this one.
Yeah, that was a sick-ass result. It wasn't as good as the Austin bamming, but I just think, man, they're like, if we could go through as Sounders that much adversity and come out the other side looking like that, man, I'd be so happy.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that, you know, we talk about how when you're injured or you lose a player, or how much of a death sentence it can be in this league with the roster restrictions and stuff. I mean, it's all true. And like when you lose DPs or your DPs aren't producing, it absolutely can be a death sentence. But like it hasn't been for Minnesota, you know. So why is that? Good coaching, good depth. Like they have
the ability
to withstand that, which is that if you're a really good team, you have the ability to do that.
Yeah. You also have the ability to move a problem player or move a player that's not producing. That's all I got to say.
I mean, it did take them like 2 years of Reynoso going missing for them to finally move him.
That's true.
But
he was still like balling. So
I mean, he played in one game this year, and I think they were so desperate to get his production back that like they've been trying to like fix that situation, but by the 4th time he went missing, it just couldn't be done.
That's what they say, 4th time's a charm.
Chicago Fire, I'm going to put them in here for their 2-1 win over the LA Galaxy. I think it says more about how far the LA Galaxy stock has fallen than it says anything about the Fire like turning things around. But
they famously scored the worst MLS goal of all time.
Yeah, but they've had such a bad season that I'll give them credit for this week for getting the dub. That's all I had for the winner section. Let's get into the losers because this is always more fun.
Absolutely.
Nashville SC lost 2-1 at home to the New England Revs, who are the worst team in the. I mean, we talked about it last week. They've been on pace for some serious historic wooden spoon type company.
Yeah.
With how bad they've been this year, and Nashville SC, who are playing under an interim coach right now, lost to them at home. They got bammed on by New England's a really good homegrown attacker, Esmir. I can't remember his last name, but he scored his first MLS goal. He's a player that we've written quite extensively about on the website as far as he's getting scouted by overseas clubs. He's got a lot of theoretical upside. So maybe that's something that can help the Revs as they try and dig out of this. And then Carlos Gil, who I feel bad for him because he's one of the most talented players in the league, and he's just languishing on this really bad team. Something else funny that happened in this game was that Javier Arriaga conceded a penalty, and he originally actually got a red card for it, and then they changed it to a yellow on video review because I think they said originally that he was dog sawing, like putting his hand out to block it from going in the goal, but it was from really far away, and then it might not have gone in. But anyway, VAR overturned it, so Javi ended up getting only a yellow, but did concede the penalty.
He's in prime form.
So yeah, just like old times.
Yeah.
Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, have lost 7 straight games.
You can't do that, Ari.
Peter Vermees is under fire. No, he gave the funniest coach press conference of the season last night. He really did. I wrote down 3 of my favorite quotes from it. And his pressers have been getting increasingly disgruntled. But here are my favorite Peter Vermees highlights from his presser after Sporting KC's 3-1 loss at Minnesota United last night. The first one was, he started the presser by saying this: "We played great other than the 3 goals that we conceded," which I always think it's funny when a coach says that. Like, it was a lot of good stuff out there, except for the 3 times that we got bammed on in the game. But aside from that,
what we're not supposed to do,
it was lights out. If you just take away the 3 goals that we conceded, it would have been. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. He also, someone asked him what they need to do to get out of this funk, and his answer was, "We need to score more goals than the other team, and then not give up any goals." Which I think
that's the tactical genius.
I think like what he was trying to illustrate that the solution is simple, and it's like he's trying to say it's not like a complicated thing. We just need to score more and concede less. But I mean, the whole point of soccer is to score and not concede. So I mean, it just doesn't really illuminate that much as to, like, the question is essentially what do you need to do to score more and concede less? And he answered with, "We need to score more and concede less." So not the greatest answer I've ever heard. And then someone actually asked about his job status. That asked, like, have you heard anything from ownership about what your status is with the club at this point, with the form, what it is? And he kind of bristled and he said, you can go ask the owners about that. Which, I mean, no, they can't. Like, the owners, MLS owners and like sports team owners in general, are not available to the media all that often to like call up to ask about that. I don't know if Sporting KC is having media availability soon, but like, I don't know if it's necessarily accurate to say that whoever asked that question can ask anyone else.
Is he still the GM too?
He is.
So
He's
then, like,
director.
he would be the one to ask about firing a coach, like, in general.
Well, GM's not the owner,
right?
He still has who he answers to, which that's who he's referring to. But I mean, it's just
he should fire himself from the
he
coaching.
could, like, as sporting director, he could fire the coach, which is him.
Yeah. That's more what I meant.
Yeah,
which is funny because he's a master tactician. Those tactics are score goal, don't concede goal.
Yeah.
So his tactics are breaking down here, Ari.
It's pretty innovative tactics. And then finally, the Philly Union down bad. So
they're Jover.
Okay. So they ended up tying 2-2 against CF Montreal, but pretty terrible performance, honestly. They got bammed on 1 minute into the game at home, which it is so weird to watch the last few weeks how frequently they concede these really bad and soft goals at home. Just totally like a total flip from the Philly Union that we're used to seeing at Subaru Park. Like they did not used to do this. And then it happened again 1 minute into the game against a pretty mid CF Montreal team playing on the road. They give up the goal, and then they went up 2-1, and CF Montreal got a red card. So they were up a man with the lead. And this was just a really funny sequence. They were up a man with the lead, and then they got a red card. Jack Elliott got a red card. I can't remember if it was a second yellow or a straight red, but it was a bad challenge that he got sent off for. So they go down to 10 men. So it's 10-on-10. But Philly still has the lead. They could see it out with the even numbers. And on the free kick that Jack Elliott conceded, which was from pretty far away. So right after he got sent off, CF Montreal gets a free kick. They send a ball into the mixer, and CF Montreal scores on it to tie it, and Philly dropped 2 more points at home. I don't know what's going on with them, but like it's been enough games now of this type of stuff for Philly where I'm legitimately starting to question. It's been past the point where I've started to the question over whether they're like a serious contender in the East. Like they're not looking like one right now.
No, I mean, people saw Philly and Seattle kind of on the same tier of like contenders for the Cup this year. And I think it's funny that they have both just tanked.
Yeah. And Philly, I would argue Philly's tanking. Philly lost to Seattle at home.
Yeah.
Like that's, you got to be pretty down bad for that.
Yeah. Like Philly, with how good the East is, if Philly continue their form, like, are they going to make the playoffs is questionable. But then you have the Sounders who like, they can just like beat around the bush and probably end up making the playoffs.
Philly's season so far, the highlight of it was when the Raccoon charged onto the field.
Yeah.
That's legitimately the highlight of their season.
Yeah, that's like, come on.
Which is a good highlight.
It's a good highlight,
I'm not
but
like
like
detracting from the
like
Raccoon,
we made a whole pod about that.
Yeah,
but like,
it's not necessarily what you want if you're the Philly Union.
Yeah. Well, it's like your 2 highlights are signing like a 12-year-old kid and then a raccoon. Like, I don't know. And like every single end times thing happening at your stadium, from a flood to animals to everything. So it's like, this is the question we should be asking. Does God hate the Philly Union?
He might. I don't know. It's arguably time to start asking. All right, that's all I had for this week. Let's call it a wrap for episode 40. Thank you to everyone, as always, for tuning in. It's much appreciated. Thank you to all our paid subscribers. We love you guys. Please like, rate, comment, subscribe, rate 5 stars, tell your friends, tell your parents.
Tell Kevin Sullivan.
We really appreciate everyone who tunes in every single week. We continue to be both surprised and happy about the support and increased listenership that we've been seeing. Hopefully, you had some fun vibing with us on the Columbus cruise. Great collapse. That's going to be a wrap for this one. We'll see you for episode 41. Until then, we out.
Peace.